Coming up in this issue of Marlborough Magazine. Trying to get ahead of the game with your heating bill this winter? We'll show you what you can do in your home to save some cash. Marlborough and Hudson will be meeting for the 100th time this Thanksgiving. In case you haven't paid too much attention, we'll tell you just how important this rivalry has been. And we took a camera around town to see what you will be giving thanks for when you sit down to eat with family or friends this Thanksgiving. These stories and more are in this issue of Marlborough Magazine.
Hello, and welcome to this issue of Marlborough Magazine. I'm Susan Laufer. Many people in the community deserve credit and a big thanks for saving the 2003 Labor Day Parade. At the Lions Club meeting in October, a couple of awards were handed out to those who made a difference in saving the parade. Marlborough Magazine's Sophie Burke was in attendance at this meeting.
This year was the 52nd anniversary of the Labor Day Parade in Marlborough. But as we all know, this year's parade almost didn't happen. Back in June, when it seemed as though Marlborough might not have what has become a hallmark of community tradition, the city rallied. At their October meeting, the Marlborough Lions Club recognized two of the largest contributors to the effort to save the Labor Day Parade, the American Legion and the Marlborough Eagles.
When we realized how much participation we got from the Eagles in our volunteer efforts, and when the American Legion put on their benefit night alone and helping us out with all of that, the money that we raised, a lot of it came from those two organizations.
The Lions Club bestowed the President's Award for Outstanding Community Service on representatives from each of the organizations. Bob Hicks, President of the Fraternal Order of Eagles, FOE 3565.
Very honored. Very surprised and very honored.
It's nice to be acknowledged for our efforts, and on behalf of the Legion, I suppose I'd like to thank the Lions organization for giving us said recognition.
The American Legion and the Marlborough Eagles were responsible for about 25% of the $20,000 that was raised by community fundraisers to save the parade. The American Legion held a dinner dance that raised nearly $2,500, and the Eagles participated in a voluntary toll road in August, an activity that raised $8,000. For Marlborough Magazine, I'm Sophie Burke.
The beautiful scenery of a New England autumn is always followed by the harsh reality of winter. With that in mind, our newest member of the Marlborough Magazine crew, Kim Bent, decided to help you figure out what you can do to help save on some heating costs during this upcoming winter. Kim?
As the nights grow colder and the days grow shorter, we're all going to be using more energy. That's why I called Conservation Services to see where I could save some money and reduce my heating costs. Bob Eckel works for the Conservation Services Group in Westboro. And if you want to get a free audit done on your home, he's one of the people you can call on. Bob or someone else from the Conservation Services Group will come to your home and help you figure out how to save money.
Well, here in Marlborough, Massachusetts Electric is the electric utility, and we administer their Home Performance with Energy Star program for them. So Massachusetts Electric customers who are interested in investing in their homes, making it more energy efficient, can call a toll-free number, 1-800-632-8300, to get some more information about the Home Performance with Energy Star program, and someone like myself would come out to the home, do a thorough go-through of the home, and come up with a plan to help that customer improve the energy efficiency of their home, make it more comfortable, cut down on their operating costs.
Bob took me on a cost-cutting tour of my house. My home is only 2 years old, but as I found out, there were still ways for my family to save money. The first thing Bob noticed in my basement was my choice of lighting.
High efficiency lighting down here in the basement. These are compact fluorescent bulbs. They use only 25% of the power of a standard incandescent bulb that you're normally going to find in most applications. So this is great. Hopefully you have others throughout the house as well.
Again, considering the relatively new status of my home, the boiler and water heater are in good shape. The boiler will last between 15 and 20 years, but in terms of efficiency, Bob suggested that the 10-year mark is a good time to start thinking about an upgrade. Bob, as you come into my kitchen, I wanted to show you these lights. Now, these are not Energy Star efficient.
Correct.
Are there any solutions?
Yeah, these are just a typical incandescent floodlight, and these are very common in most people's houses. Recently, they've come a long way. You can now buy the energy-efficient compact fluorescent bulbs that look just like this. So they're enclosed with a reflector, and they give the same look. They've come a long way. They work really well. They're even dimmable now, so you can get them for virtually any application.
That sounds great, because I have to admit, I really didn't want the little spirals in my kitchen.
Nope, they can look just like that. Kim, obviously, because you have a nice new home, your appliances are all new. Now, this doesn't have the Energy Guide sticker on it, but do you recall when you bought it, was it an Energy Star model? Was it really energy efficient?
Yes, it was. It was one of the cheapest models to run on the floor.
Okay, that's great, and that's what you should always look for when you're upgrading an old appliances. Always look for that Energy Star label. You know, there's always two costs associated with buying an appliance: what you're going to pay for purchasing the appliance, also what it's going to take to run over its lifetime. So spending a few more dollars up front, you can definitely save money in the long haul. And just check with your electric utility, because replacing old, inefficient appliances, the utilities have attractive rebates that help customers defray the costs of that.
Oh, that's
so
wonderful.
Massachusetts Electric right now, if you have an old, inefficient refrigerator, you can get a $300 rebate towards replacing that with a new Energy Star refrigerator, as long as you retire the old one.
The temperature you keep your thermostat on can also hurt or help you. When you leave the house, it can help you save money by lowering the temperature for at least 4 hours. Or, if you can deal with it, bedtime is a good time to lower the temperature too.
Now, a lot of people don't want to do that because they don't want to wake up to a cold house. That's why a few dollars for installing a programmable thermostat here. This, you can program it around your lifestyle, have it go up and down, turn on about a half hour or so before you get up in the morning. You come down, it'll be nice and warm for you. All night you'll be saving energy, you'll be saving on your heating costs.
The windows in your home are one way that heat can escape and is also an entryway for cold drafts. Locking your windows can solve it simply. Some people who live above a first floor do not lock their windows, but if you do, the motion of locking them will set the weather strips and properly seal the window. Locking can be better than any window treatment that you might buy to prevent the heat from escaping.
Anything else that you put in front of these windows will make them a little bit more efficient, but it's not going to be terribly cost effective. So those window treatments, there's an expense to them, and they're not going to save a tremendous amount on your bills, but they will help you be a little bit more comfortable, because it'll reduce the amount of heat that you give off to the cold glass surface.
Well, Bob and I started in the basement, so it only made sense to finish up in the attic. This is a place in your home that you probably don't think too much about, but since heat rises, you should think of it as your last line of defense.
So if we could look around a little bit, I could probably find some holes and gaps for you. So here's some plumbing piping from your venting system, and if we pull this insulation away, you can see that there's gaps here where the pipes go down through the ceiling.
Right.
This is the top of your partition wall, and if you look carefully, you can see right down into the wall cavities.
Oh, yeah.
So all the time, as heat goes into those walls, conducts into the walls, and the air is warm and more buoyant, it's going to work its way up and leak up here into the attic, and with that, it's going to carry away some of your heat.
Right.
It could also bring moisture up in here, which could be an issue as well.
Because hot air always, like you said, is more buoyant. It wants to travel upwards. It wants to
exactly.
rise.
It wants to rise up here, and you probably have hundreds of linear feet of gaps like this throughout the attic space, buried under all of this insulation. So it would have been nice for those to all been sealed up beforehand. It certainly can be done now. It's just a matter of identifying all those leakage points. And we can actually do tests on a house like this to measure just how leaky the house is, test it beforehand, identify the sources of the leaks, seal them up, test them again, make sure you see that we've saved some energy there. It's called a blower door test. And then, that's going to help make this insulation perform. You have all this insulation, but you have plenty of air leaking through it.
There always seems to be new construction popping up in our city, but that might make people forget that New England is an old historic area. There are plenty of houses with a few decades on them. New or old, though, you can save yourself some costs by having an audit done to your home.
Well, for most homes in this part of the country, they're older homes. You happen to have a nice new home here, but still there's room to improve this home. Most older homes can really benefit from looking at the house as an overall system, checking out its insulation, seeing how leaky the house is, and coming up with a plan to make the house perform. So it really doesn't cost that much, no more than a couple of $1,000s for the average house. You can really make that house much more efficient. And Massachusetts Electric has some very generous incentives to help customers make those improvements in their homes.
If you are interested in having your home audited and want more information, you can call 1-800-632-8300. Winter's on its way. Make sure you are properly prepared. I'm Kim Bent from Marlborough Magazine.
The Immaculate Conception Church is Marlborough's oldest Catholic church. In October, the IC Church began a year-long celebration to mark its 150th year.
Marlborough is a city with a rich religious history. There are many places of worship in town that can be traced back to the 19th century. But the oldest Catholic church can be found on Prospect Street, and this year they are celebrating their 150th anniversary. The year-long celebration began recently with a kickoff picnic, a Harvest the Parish Fair, and a concert with singing State Trooper Dan Clark. But before we look at the Immaculate Conception Church today, let's first look at how it all started. Back in 1848, there were 6 Catholic families living in Marlborough. At that time, there were no Catholic churches in town, and so these families had to travel to Framingham, Milford, or Worcester to attend services, known in the Catholic faith as Mass. And in those days, such travel was no easy task.
They began to get tired of this, so they asked the bishop if he couldn't send a priest out. And the bishop acceded to that. In 1850, he sent out a Father Hamilton. And Father Hamilton said the first Mass, Catholic Mass, here in Marlborough in 1850, and he said it in a home on South Street.
That was good news to the parishioners. The bad news was that Father Hamilton would only come out every 2 months, and the Marlborough Catholics wanted Mass to be said more frequently.
But then, because of the famine that they had in Ireland and the unemployment, a number of Irish immigrants began to come to the United States. And naturally they settled in Framingham and Worcester, but a good number of them settled here in Marlborough. So it got to the point where there were so many Catholics, devout Catholics, who wanted to attend Mass, who wanted their children to go to Sunday school, that they couldn't do it in a residence. So they decided that they would build a church somewhere here in Marlborough. Father Farrelly said, if you will raise $1,000, I will begin to build a church for you. So they went out and they raised the $1,000, and they built a small church up on off of West Main Street, up and around the Mount Pleasant area, or the Charles Street area, and that was done in 1854. The Father Farrelly said the first Catholic Mass in a church here in Marlborough in 1854.
It wasn't long until that church became inadequate. A continued growth in population from the Irish as well as the French Canadians created a need for a larger church, so the hunt was on for a new location. Originally, one of the first sites selected was on Main Street, where the Middleton building currently stands. But then a plot of land on Prospect Street caught the eye of the pastor. Money was tight at this time, and it wasn't until Father McGuire became pastor that the movement to build the church really began.
When Father McGuire stood up to meet the congregation on the first at his first Mass, he introduced himself, and then he said, "I have some good news for you." I'm paraphrasing this now. "I have some good news for you, and I have some bad news for you. The good news is that we're going to build a church, and we're going to build it on Prospect Street, and it's going to be a beautiful edifice, perhaps the nicest in the city, or perhaps even in the state. That's the good news. But the bad news is that we don't have a cent to do it with." And then he said, "But let's go back to the good news." He said, "I'm throwing you a challenge to build this church with me. We can do it together, and we can succeed."
Succeed they did. The parish raised $20,000 to build the church. The foundation was laid, and the first Masses were said in the basement.
And then they built the church itself for $60,000. And with the people who were in the parish at that time, our grandfathers and grandmothers and great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers, they provided the funds to pay off $45,000 of that $60,000 debt within a couple of years.
The church was finished and dedicated in 1871, and what began as a hope from 6 Catholic families came to fruition. In 1886, one of the most popular pastors of the Immaculate Conception Church, Father McKenna, began saying Mass. He made many improvements to the structural look of the church. He added a steeple and a bell tower to the church, and also built a rectory behind the church. The beginning of the 20th century was a new era for the Immaculate Conception Church. The pastor at the time, Father Lowney, decided that the Catholic children needed to be well educated so they could go out and spread the church's teachings. To that end, a new grammar school was constructed behind the church in 1911, and the first class graduated in 1915. John Bonitatabus, at 98, is the church's oldest parishioner. He began his involvement with the church through the school.
And when our son was born, we wanted to give him a religion education by the nuns. They said to send him to public school. And so when John got to be 6 years old, we sent him to the IC school. And on top of that, he sang in the choir from when he was 7 years old until he graduated. And when our old grandson went to school there too, and he became an altar boy. I was an altar boy myself in the old country.
By the 1950s, the demand for Catholic education was so great that the parish saw a need to expand the school. Another school was built on the corner of Prospect and Washington Streets, and the number of students doubled. The church has had some setbacks in its long history, but the people have always rallied behind the church. One such incident was in 1938.
The hurricane was so severe that it toppled the steeple here, and Father Fletcher, who was the pastor at the time, he wanted to rebuild the steeple, so he went door to door and collected contributions to replace the steeple. And when he replaced it, he said to the parishioners, "I think we should lower the size of the steeple so that another hurricane won't knock it down." And that's what they did, and the steeple is still there. So I guess he knew what he was talking about. But the contributions were $2 here and $5 there, but that was a lot of money in those days. But again, once again, the parishioners came through, and they rallied behind their church, and the church was restored, and it's now in its beautiful condition.
The Catholic religion itself has gone through a number of changes in the past 150 years. Some of these changes resulted in more structural changes to the Immaculate Conception Church.
The architecture of churches pre-Vatican II, including the Immaculate Conception, was such that You notice the altar here is faces the people, and the priests would face the people in celebrating Mass. Therefore, what we see here is post-Vatican II, but you can see if there is any footage that you have of the altar that's behind this altar, you will note that that is the way the Mass was said pre-Vatican II. And the priest had his back to the congregation in all cases, and he would face the congregation only for blessings and when he would distribute the Eucharist. The architecture also removed communion rails from the Immaculate Conception as well as all churches throughout the country, because that was looked upon as a symbol of separation of the congregation from the celebrant. So in this church you can see some remnants of the communion rail on either side of the sanctuary, but prior to Vatican II, that communion rail extended in front of the entire sanctuary.
There have been other changes in the church, including the nationality of the parishioners. Much like the Irish of over 100 years ago, Marlborough saw a boom in its Brazilian population in the early 1990s, and they too needed a place to worship.
So at that time then, my sister, Gracia Santana, and my brother-in-law, Joselito Santana, they attended Mass here at the IC parish, and they were friends with Father McLaughlin at that time. So they set up a meeting with Father McLaughlin and our priest, Father Jonas Vieiras de Moraes. They welcomed us with hearts, open hearts, and they opened their doors for us and welcomed us in a very special and warm way.
Today, things couldn't be better for the Immaculate Conception Church. The size of the parish is about 10,000 people. The Immaculate Conception School enrolls over 300 students. And with Father McHugh as pastor, the parish feels things are only going to get better.
We have Father McHugh as our pastor here, and we have Father David White as the assistant pastor, and they are just wonderful people. Very, very attuned to modern day life, very energetic, very good administrators. So the Immaculate Conception today is alive and well.
And I think it's important for people to stop and reflect and remember that what has gone on in the past 150 years here in this parish, IC parish. It's a wonderful place. I am very happy to be here and looking forward to spending much more time and many fruitful years here as a priest in Immaculate Conception Parish.
As part of the year-long celebration, several events have been planned, some of which include the Boston Christmas Pops with Keith Lockhart, a renewal of marriage vows on February 14th of 2004, a visit from the Archdiocesan Black Choir, and a week-long cruise from Boston to Bermuda. For more information on these events or other events that may be happening, check out the Immaculate Conception website at www.icmarlborough.org. The Marlborough Panthers and the Hudson Hawks football teams will take the field, as they always do, on Thanksgiving Day. This game will have more of a special feel to it than their last few meetings. Here to explain is Dan Ginden.
When great sports rivalries are mentioned, New Englanders usually think Celtics-Lakers or Yankees-Red Sox. In the Midland-Wachusett League, though, everyone knows the greatest sports rivalry is Marlborough-Hudson.
I remember the coach used to say, if you lost every game and you beat Hudson, it was a successful season.
But then after the first hit, you're all set to play ball. Usha's doing it again.
I remember being little, just always hearing about the Marlborough-Hudson game on Thanksgiving. It's awesome to be able to play in it.
It's a tight-knit type of thing, so it really is a lot stronger than a Yankees-Red Sox type of rivalry, I think.
In 1906, Marlborough and Hudson played their first game against one another. They missed out on playing for a couple seasons due to the wars. However, this Thanksgiving, the Panthers and Hawks will clash on the gridiron for the 100th time. Every year, both squads look forward to their Turkey Day Classic, but the players know there is something a little extra special about this matchup.
This is going to be a big deal. Pretty honored to play in it, actually. Hopefully we can win it, so we'll always be remembered for that.
I think that everyone knows it's a big thing, but you don't really realize how big it is. I mean, I know 100 years, that's for a high school football rivalry, that's a huge amount of time.
Yeah.
But I think everyone will respect that it's the 100th game and play like it.
My grandfather's from Hudson. He played for Hudson, and he played for the 50th game against Hudson his senior year, so it's going to be kind of amazing. He'll be there watching and everything.
Wow, where's he going to stand, in the end zone? Because he can't stand on one side or the other.
I know. He sits, you know where he belongs, so he's with Marlborough now.
Yeah. Every coach's concern is that their players look past a game or two and think about a matchup somewhere down the road. That isn't to say that Coach Paul Duplessis doesn't understand. He was involved in the rivalry for 3 years as a player for Marlborough High School. He feels that they have their focus set on the whole season, not just a one-game matchup.
You know, they've mentioned it, we've mentioned it, you know, but, you know, we're in the middle of the season right now, and what we're trying to concentrate on is one game at a time, but I know that's in the back of their minds, and, you know, and it creeps into our minds, too, as coaches. It's going to be an exciting thing, and I'll tell you, it's a great honor, and it's a great, I guess it's going to be a great experience to be involved and be the coach, and these guys are going to be the players who played in this game, and, you know, that's quite an honor.
It's obvious that this rivalry has not lost its luster. Playing in the 100th game is meaningful, and watching it will be too for all the former players and coaches. It seems everyone is hopeful that this rivalry will never end.
I'm hoping it doesn't end, the Marlborough-Hudson rivalry doesn't end.
This is one of the really historic series, and you know, I mean, you get kids out in the field whose fathers and grandfathers played. That's a whole different element.
The thing about it is when you went on the field Thanksgiving Day, the field looked different, the opponents looked different, your teammates looked different. Yeah. It was an entirely different atmosphere.
I hope it continues, and I hope they don't ever decide to call that rivalry off, because it's been successful. It's been a little one-sided at times, but overall, it's been an excellent rivalry. And when you think you've got them by the tail, they turn around and upset you. So you never know which one's going to come up with the win.
This is the time of year when people like to reflect on what they are thankful for. Dave Morin hit the town to see what Marlborough residents are thankful for this year.
For our children, for my children, my husband, for all our good health, and just if we could have peace, that would be perfect, wouldn't it?
I'm thankful for my family and friends and for having a home and like a roof over my head.
What I'm thankful for is in these ladies that I have my husband, and we're both able to care for ourselves, and I hope it goes on for a long time.
For the wonderful family and friends that I have, and for living in such a great country.
Thankful I'm standing up here right now and get up every morning.
I'm thankful for my family, my son and my daughter, they're living with me. I thank God for all the blessings He's put in my life.
Well, the one thing that I was thankful for is probably to be with my family. I'm thankful this year for my mom, my dad, and my dog.
I'm thankful for my family and for the new family that I'll acquire when I get married 2 days after Thanksgiving.
I'm just as thankful. I echo the thought. Let me tell you, when you walk with a cane, it's a pleasure to put your feet on the ground.
I'm thankful that I have a job and I have a home.
This year I'm thankful for the Patriots easing the sorrow of the Red Sox. I'm thankful for my family, my job helping seniors. That's me.
Thankful this year because I've been told that by my sons that I'm going to have 2 more grandchildren. And that's terrific to have grandchildren. I'm much too young to have grandchildren. I can't believe I'm that old.
Well, I just want to say thank God for everything we got, everything we're going to get. It was very nice year. I hope you have more one coming down the road.
And we here at Channel 8 are thankful that you tune in to watch our shows. That's it for this issue of Marlborough Magazine. I'm Susan Laufer. Thank you for watching.